Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a live Mark and Andre podcast show. With me is my co-host, Andre Gaynor.
Hey.
How's it going, Andre?
Fantastic.
And with us, just observing, I guess, Isaiah. Just say hello. They know you're observing.
Hey, how's it going?
He's not going to be providing any commentary for us today on the Mark and Andre podcast show. He's simply going to be observing, nonetheless.
He really was adamant on informing us that he's only here to observe.
Today is September 9th, 2016. 2 days on Sunday is going to be the 15th anniversary of 9/11. Do you in particular, Andre, remember how it was that day on September 11th for you?
I remember... I distinctly remember just watching it on TV, and almost having this surreal moment where it didn't even seem real.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it was something that you see on a film.
Yeah.
It was like, it really felt like that, it's just a movie. Like I'm watching a movie, because there's no way that really just happened. Yeah. And I remember it was just, there was a lot of tension around just the fact that these planes hit the buildings. And it's like, what the hell is that about? And then in due time, with all the panic and everyone kind of freaking out, because it's in New York, I have a sister in New York, and I was like, oh, I don't know where she lives, but that's close, really panicked. And then the buildings fell, and I just didn't understand. It was one of those things. The buildings went down, and I was like, what? Yeah. And not in a skeptical way. It was just kind of like, it was so... it was just weird. Didn't make sense how everything just went down. But, it was an unexpected attack, so of course it was unexpected, but it just was really out of nowhere.
I'm in agreement. I am actually in agreement with you on this. Mm-hmm. When I woke up, I was in junior high that day, that year, in 2001. I wake up, and I just, regular old day, did my whole routine. It was about 8 o'clock, 7:30, actually 7:30.
Damn, got all the times and the seconds.
And at 7:30, I get the whole scene that these planes have hit the World Trade Center. Mm-hmm. Both of them. At this point, both of them were hit.
Okay.
I was in shock, because I remember specifically those buildings in several movies, several cartoons. They were essentially a part of my everyday life, simply because I was a big fan of architecture. I was a big fan of the competition between the tallest buildings. Mm-hmm. At one point, the Empire State Building was the tallest building in New York City, and now the Twin Towers were. Mm-hmm. On September 11th, the Empire State Building, after about 10 o'clock, was now the tallest building in New York City. It was very shocking to me that this could happen when I was younger at the time. I was shocked to see something like this happen, because I thought that the days of attacks happening on American soil were a thing of the past.
We didn't think anyone would fuck with America.
Exactly.
At that point, right? Well, did you have that surreal experience? Did you watch it and go, wow, this is crazy? I
was watching it, and I still had to go to school and everything. My daily routine was not interrupted. Mm-hmm. It could have been if I were closer to the ground zero, what have you.
Wait, they didn't stop it in your class? I remember our classes, everything stopped.
It did as soon as I got there, but when we were watching it at home, I still had to get ready and go through my routine. And as soon as I got to Kolb Middle School, I was able to talk to everyone like, hey, what did you hear? What did you hear? We were all, this was the topic of conversation. Mm-hmm. It was something that really got everyone in unison to discuss the matter. You know what I mean? So what I really thought after I got to school and everything, I needed answers. Mm-hmm. I needed to know the what, whens, how, and whys. Naturally. Mm-hmm. That's how humans react to something that happens of this magnitude.
Exactly.
As we near the 15th anniversary, Andre, of September 11th, I believe, as do you, and I can say that wholeheartedly, that we still have more questions than answers. I believe that there is a lot of things that our government doesn't tell us. Mm-hmm. This is probably one of the most covered up stories of all time. Mm-hmm. In our lifetime, I would say.
Right. And I mean, so what are we approaching here on this episode of the podcast?
Well, on this episode of the Mark and Andre podcast, the only film, entertainment, and conspiracy podcast on Spreaker.com, we are going to dive in to the factual. Mm-hmm. We're also going to dive into the skeptical, to some. It's all up to interpretation. During this part of the show, we will first give you, from me and Andre, the facts given to me via the 9/11 Commission report, mm-hmm. which I've read. I've read all of what started on 9/11, from the planes being hijacked to when they first, from the second airplane hit the Tower 2. Mm-hmm. I've read it from end to end, and I have a lot of things to get off my chest about that.
Okay.
To those who do not think anything I or Andre say is factual, we will gladly reference. Actually, I will personally gladly reference pages of the commission report for you. Mm-hmm. This isn't something that I'm just saying out of the whole, out of just my mouth. This is something that I've actually just
These aren't sounds coming out of my face.
Yes, these are actual things that I've read. Andre knows
you hear the rummaging of papers?
I've read this thing as much as I could and realized that, wow, there's a lot of things that need to be discussed.
A lot of fabrication.
And for those who do not know about the 9/11 Commission report, let me give you a brief overview of that. After 9/11 happened, there was no reports. There was no actual documented reports being displayed for the American people. Mm-hmm. It took 3 years for the 9/11 Commission report to come out. A small team that the president hired up was able to get this commission report started. And 3 years later, a commission report comes out.
3 years.
After we finish discussing the factual information provided to us by the commission report, mm-hmm. we will then dive into the conspiracy portion of this podcast. But anyway, let me first go into the commercial segment of the Mark and Andre show. Tonight's Mark and Andre podcast show is brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers, buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you do share the Mark and Andre podcast show, my pay-per-view wrestling podcast, or Retro Collecting 101 podcast, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game purchases online or in person at Game Swappers. If you're not in the interest of buying games, you can also get the 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. If you have games you want to trade in, you can take them to Game Swappers, mention that you've shared the podcast. All you have to do is show proof, and then you'll be able to get the 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. Okay, so before we get into the meat of this whole segment here, the 9/11 segment that we have tonight, both Andre and I want to provide a disclaimer to make sure that all the bases are touched, that we don't leave any stone unturned. Mm-hmm. Both Andre and I believe that the buildings involved in the terrorist attacks in New York City on 9/11 were performed by a demolition crew. We're not structural engineers, we're not architects, we're not physicists, but we have done research on this event plenty of times over. And this portion of the podcast, I want to reiterate this portion of the podcast does not reflect the opinions or the opinions of our sponsor. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to just get to. Just want
to cover our asses.
Exactly. Game Swappers has no affiliation with the opinions that me and Andre provide on this podcast for this segment. With that briefing and disclaimer out of the way, let's get into the meat of this segment. What don't you say, Andre?
Let's go, man.
All right.
So
in the morning when the when these guys barely get to the airport. When keep in mind that 4 airplanes.
These guys. What do you mean by these guys?
These suspects.
Okay.
These alleged terrorists. Actually, they were confirmed they were confirmed in this commission report. Actually,
Right.
All the terrorists involved on that day in 9/11 actually set off metal detectors, and were actually patted down. And from what the commission report says, they were still able to board their planes. So you would imagine that after they passed the metal detectors, everything of metal, they would get searched. Okay, the keys are okay. The coins are okay.
Right.
This knife, no. Take it off. Get it out of here.
Get it out of here. And we need to talk to you.
Exactly.
Like, you have a fucking blade. You'd have to go back through.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go through one time and you go off in the metal detector, they ask you to remove your belongings, and then you step to the side and go through once more.
Mm-hmm.
If you go off once again, you have a personal assistant tend to you and use their hand. What is that?
The magnetic wand.
The magnetic wand, and they check you more thoroughly.
Yes.
If you're still going off, then they're going to pull you aside. You're not getting on your flight.
Yeah.
And I know this isn't the standard based post 9/11.
Exactly.
Was the standard pre 9/11.
They were a lot more lenient back then.
Word.
You were actually able to go to terminals with your family. They were actually able to see you leave the gate.
Right.
Now, you can't get nowhere near the gate if you don't have a ticket. If you don't have a ticket, there's a certain point where you're cut off before you get screened.
Right. And I don't know what that changed, but we're not going in on that. Did they have any other people with them that could have possibly assisted? I mean, I'm asking because you've had, more time with the commission report. Did they have any other people with them?
No, it was
just them.
It was just the team themselves, and there was no one else. Everyone that's documented per flight were the only people involved.
Okay.
Per the commission report. But this brings speculation already, despite, us not going into the speculative part of this podcast, because these assailants, were able to wield box cutters on these flights. Mm-hmm. After the point of where you get screened, there is a box cutter being wielded or given to them, or not even, or just, I don't know, there was a box cutter that they acquired after the metal detector to the flight. That is what gets me really... If these guys actually got caught setting off these alarms, I would assume all the metal paraphernalia would be taken. But then after, what happens at that point from A to B? A being the metal detector and B being the flight. Do they acquire a box cutter?
Right. And you can't tell me that these were all haphazard attempts at being security guards. Like they just were that bad at their job. All of them.
The metal detector does the work for you.
Yeah, but you still get searched by someone that once you walk through.
Yeah.
What more do you need to do?
There's icing on the cake. Yeah, exactly. So after the metal detector's gone, we need to know.
Incompetent. Okay. Like what? How did that? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It's a little too. That's just so convenient for a terrorist, isn't that? Like that's the most convenience I've ever seen. And don't tell me it was a specific kind of airport, and then their security at this airport is really bad because they're always busy. Yeah. I highly doubt that.
I would imagine guidelines brought through by the FAA to make sure that you hire a private security team that actually can do these things.
Right.
With audits appropriately and everything else.
Right. What security guard is going to be that busy, though? Look, man, I see you got a box cutter. Get out of here, man. Just don't use it. Like, there's no way. It wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't make... Let me just hold this, man. That makes more sense than anything. All right, I'm going to just hold your box cutter. Get out of here. That makes sense.
We got a big pizza here, and we need to cut it. But we were going to get hungry on the flight. Let us use box cutter. Oh, that's fine, B. Go ahead.
No, you say, quench your
I
hunger,
like pizza, too, B. You know what I mean? Go ahead. Welcome to NYC. All right, the next point I want to bring up, and that's an actual valid point there, is that it's still unanswered. In the commission report, from the point to the metal detectors to the planes, they do not specify where they got box cutters from. Because they said, oh yeah, they did set off the alarms, okay. From that point, I do assume that everything was taken from them, weapon-wise.
Right. And I'd highly doubt they put box cutters in inappropriate places,
Yeah. Because nonetheless, it would have been set off.
It still would have been set off, and they would have whoop, whoop, and the hell? Like, they would have found it. So, That's just strange. So yeah, maybe no, there is no. But I don't know what could have happened on the way to the flight. There's no way that some other person's using a box cutter, and for them all to consistently have one. You know,
Yeah, I
It's
would
like
imagine
if you took one from a janitor somehow.
Okay, yeah.
The odds of that are pretty crazy, but that means that had to happen. There are 4, right?
There's 4 teams.
4 teams. So all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Because it doesn't in the commission report. It doesn't specify how many actually had a total of box cutters.
Okay.
Total number of box cutters. Okay. The next point we wanted to make sure that we were able to get across is to subdue the plane. Each team would have needed to access a locked and secured plane cockpit. Mm-hmm. And FAA regulations forbid the opening of a cockpit door during a domestic flight at all. It is not allowed. All 4 of these flights were, with the exception of Flight 93 that crashed in Pennsylvania, all reached their designated targets. All 4 of these planes were all successful in their hijacking to some extent. And the way they were supposedly successful was the fact that each team threatened they had a bomb on the plane and were able to gain access to this cockpit. I've seen a cockpit, like, before you, when you board the flight, you're given a brief, you have to cut the corner to the main aisle.
Right.
But you see that big cockpit door being with locks and everything. And you even see the whole, the whole inside of the plane, like the whole, the meat of it with the air, with the metal and whatnot. But you're able to see this cockpit door, and it's like
It's a damn panic room.
Yes,
You can't get
exactly.
in there. And it just doesn't make sense. And once again, the consistency bothers me. That they pulled this off each time. And each team was successful.
Yeah.
The odds of that are crazy.
Yes.
They're crazy. So they threatened everyone on the flight with box cutters and said they had a bomb. That's all they did. They just said, we have a bomb, and they pull out box cut. I'm sorry. It's just, when you think of the number of people on these flights, I don't care if there's an inherent fear of an attack taking place.
Yeah.
If someone pulls out a box cutter and that's all they have, that's it. This is a box cutter. You don't think a single person would have went for it? A single person. I mean, they have to turn their back at one point. You think they had military precision with these little box cutters to hold an entire plane hostage for 4 different flights?
Yes.
Do you think that's possible?
I personally don't think so. And in this commission report, keep in mind,
I can take a cut. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just thinking about that. I could take a cut from a box cutter to get the weapon. Like, no one's that afraid. You know what I mean? Like, somebody in there. So, and you mean to tell me out of all the people on the plane, there's not one person with some type of military experience? One person with
Air Marshal.
We got the Air Marshal. We got a fucking, I don't know, a Kung Fu instructor. What are the odds? There must be somebody in there that could handle this situation.
And to add to your point, Andre, is that the people, the pilots are military trained.
Yes.
Each one of those pilots are.
Yes.
They know what to do in these type of situations if someone gains access to their cockpit.
With the fucking box cutter in their hand.
That
scraping at the door. I don't get how that was a success.
Consistent
success.
We have in the commission report, it says that the only means of communication you had within the cockpit were not by radio, because the terrorists were in control of it. But for you to actually get inside information, the the flight attendants were able to call in through those IBM phones that they had on each, like behind the row of seat, behind you, there was a phone, so they were able to call and voice out what was going on. They said that people were dying on those flights, like by getting their necks slit.
Right.
And from what the commission report painted, it's like, I don't imagine 4 people to 60 on average flight, 60 to about 100 people. I don't imagine that ratio of 4 to 5 people being a lot more powerful than 60 people on a flight.
Right. And
the numbers just outweigh the probability statistically.
And then, statistically, once again, the odds of someone in that group having some type of training for this type of situation.
Yeah.
I don't the threat of a box cutter, it is terrifying. I don't want to get cut, but it's not like he had the bomb strapped to his body. It's not like he had a pistol and was like, I'll still shoot. I don't care. It's a little ass knife, guys. Tiny, and it's one of the sharpest though. It's very sharp.
Yeah.
But still, I don't think he can cut my guts out or something crazy. You know what I mean? But I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to put myself in this scenario. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, it's inherently terrifying. This is scary.
Yeah.
You don't know what you would do in a particular situation. But I will say, out of an average flight of 60 people, let's say half of those people are freaked out and they don't want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I highly doubt the other 30 are equally you can't scare that many people with such a small threat.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make sense. But once again, the odds. Okay, so one flight, that's successful. You managed to have 4 guys scare 60 people and you hold them all hostage. 3 more flights did the exact same thing? That's crazy.
It's very shocking. I would imagine,
Dude,
at the point where you are being threatened with your life, there is the flight or fight.
Mm-hmm.
The adrenaline kicks in, and you have 2 choices. Either to make sure that you're as safe as possible and hide, or however, or fight to the point of where to your limit.
Mm-hmm.
That's just all what we have on that point there. It's just, it's still insurmountable to imagine.
Mm-hmm.
But the
I mean, I guess if I'm trying to find the counter argument, seat positioning is a little bit, I guess, unfair.
Yeah.
So if I'm there's people on the outer seats, and then you have 2 other people that are a lot closer to the window.
Yeah.
Maybe they are in a position where they can't jump out and handle their business, but still, I just don't think there are things that happen. I mean, mothers lift cars when their adrenaline kicks in. So, you mean to tell me, not a single person says, I'm not going to fucking die today, and they just go nuts and karate chop or handle their business in whatever way that they can. I just don't, out of 60 people, not 1 or 2 or 3 just say, let's go. Worst case scenario, we die anyway, right?
Yeah. I have another point to make on this. At the report of each flight being hijacked to each plane hitting their designated target, that all happened within a time window of 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So this not only was a coincidental incident in regards to Tower 1 and 2 in New York City, but this happened with effective time strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even want to get into the actual the aerial maneuvers that these guys had to pull.
Yeah, we don't need to go there.
To where they're so pilots, but they're still able to do this. But to make this happen all within 30 minutes, to the point where from the point of the first hijack being reported to them making the impact, all happened within a span of 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And to neutralize, I'm thinking of the pilots too, though.
Exactly.
You neutralized military trained pilots, all of you. How? I just, this is already crazy now. You've done it in expert time, but you're apparently amateurs, all of you. And you've managed to take out people that are experts in their craft and they're and being able to, a pilot's job is to safely provide a trip from one destination to the next. If something goes wrong, their job changes to protecting the people of the flight, because you still need to get them safely to their destination by any means necessary.
It is the same mantra as if the captain goes with the ship.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So from the dialogue in the commission report, it seems that the terrorists do overtake the cockpit, and there is no word from any of the pilots after the terrorists overtake the cockpit.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. So dead silence on every single one of those flights. It's eerie. And to go further into this point is that the FAA and NORAD, basically FAA, I want to briefly tell you guys, because I don't know if you know the FAA, the audience knows about the FAA, but the FAA are the people that make sure that these flights go safely from one destination to the next. Mm-hmm. NORAD would then be the police to whatever happens in the sky that the domestic people, that the flight coordinators from the FAA can't control. Mm-hmm. We're talking intercepting flights, flights that are unregistered or don't have permission to fly into certain zones, they will get escorted out. They will get escorted by jets. The FAA and NORAD did not make contact with any government agency till after both planes were hijacked. President Bush was not told about anything before the first plane hits.
Now, the reason this is important is
Excuse
because...
me, I'm sorry, but he didn't. No one told President Bush anything before the planes hit, but only after the first plane hit Tower 1.
Okay. So when we go back to the FAA, the fact of the matter is they should have been active as soon as the planes broke course.
Exactly. They should have immediately, as soon as a plane was hijacked, that airport should have shut down flights. Actually, they should have just shut down all flights within that region, like the Eastern Hemisphere. I mean, not the Eastern Hemisphere, the eastern side of the United
world.
States. Sorry.
The whole Eastern Hemisphere. Cut the world entirely in half.
The Eastern
Cut all the flights on the Eastern Hemisphere! And then just people like, people in Australia.
Like, just man them down real quick, like land in the ocean. No, but I'm saying in the sense to where you have to, there's these desperate measures have to be met because a plane was hijacked.
Right.
Just because, so you can actually effectively spot this plane, get some jets out there to escort it or possibly take it down.
But let's say, okay, the only way that the FAA would have known that the flights were hijacked is that they broke course, right?
And if someone reported it.
Okay. So even though there were reports, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, there were reports and it broke course. These are these are red flags immediately.
Yes.
Nothing happened.
Nope. No. As soon as President Bush gets notified, this then becomes a government issue. You know what I mean? It becomes the government's issue as soon as it becomes a terrorist event. It is out of the hands of NORAD at that point.
Okay.
NORAD at that point is under the discretion of what the president says.
Okay.
So the FAA and NORAD, according to the commission report,
I keep hearing Borat. I know you're saying NORAD.
I know. The FAA and NORAD, according to the commission report, were not blamed for their actions during 9/11. The investigation basically said in this commission report that I read that the FAA were never prepared for an organized attack of this magnitude. From the first time a plane gets hijacked, that should be one thing that should be covered in FAA 101, in my opinion.
Like should be on the very top of the list
of events that you
actions.
Need to make sure that nothing's that won't happen.
The plane's been hijacked? Oh shit. I wasn't ready for that. What? Like
yes. They were completely.
We didn't think that would happen.
No one got fired. No one served jail time for on the FAA or NORAD side.
Really?
Exactly. And
it's almost like assisting the attack.
It shocks me.
I'm not saying that he did. Yeah. I'm just saying like
it just shocks me to that point where we expect people to be accountable for situations like this.
How can you account? That's crazy. Like, you mean to tell me he saw this? Because he's looking at a monitor and he goes, holy crap, we have 4 flights and they're completely out of, they're going all over the place. What's going on? We're getting reports.
Yeah.
All right. Let's figure out what to do about this. Is that what you think they did? They just twiddled their thumbs? Wow.
The way they did this is that the only way that the president found out as quick as he did is that someone from the FAA totally skipped NORAD and was able to notify someone within the government. So they totally went around the chain of command and were able to notify the government. So with that being said, this event would have been, the president would have been notified a whole lot later, if someone didn't break the chain of command, according to this report.
Now, is there anything in the report that says that mentions that the jets that would usually assist a person, or assist a flight, or we'll say an unregistered flight, those jets that would assist those person or escort them back to wherever they need to be, they were nowhere near this location, right?
Exactly.
There were no jets on duty anywhere in the area. Yeah. I think they actually had them on some type of training routine in a totally different side of the nation. With
that, the only place that they were able to launch from were I believe Florida. And from that time to where they actually get notified,
It's over already.
yeah, the first plane's already hit because President Bush and the Secretary of Defense are the only two people that can actually give permission, not to just NORAD can give permission to trace a plane, but it's a matter of to shoot it down. To shoot down a commercial airline, I don't know if anyone knows this, but to shoot down a commercial airline, you need the permission of the Secretary of Defense or the President.
Because there's civilians on board.
The only two people, because you need to assume the liability of that collateral damage of killing people because of the speculation, or actually, I'd rather say because of the proof that terrorists were on that plane.
Could you make that call, man? That sounds actually pretty rough.
Wow, yeah, that was a lot of pressure at that point.
Man, I mean, if you were in that position, you're the president. You got these flights; they're all hijacked and they're heading in weird directions. What do you do?
If I know an actual point of where they're actually getting hit, and if I had actual couple people within that plane vouching for it, if they're hitting buildings, if they're trying to hit the Empire State Building, trying to recreate something like that, you shoot them down. You don't hesitate.
That's too much, man. That's too much pressure. I'd do it too, though.
Because it's like you either shoot this plane down in the middle of Virginia, or you shoot this plane. You let this plane do what it does and has hit the Empire State Building
and take out more lives and cause more catastrophe. All right, just slight tangent. I just was curious about your idea.
But that actually trails on to what we're going to be saying too. Is that some people, including myself, thought, how come jets didn't intercept these planes?
Right.
And according to the commission report, both Flight 11 and Flight 175's transponders were removed as soon as the assailants got into the cockpits. And it added complications to locating the planes, and add that with the fact that it was hijacked and hit their targets within 30 minutes. So
basically they destroyed the GPS devices on the planes?
Exactly, to where they can locate them effectively. Otherwise, you have to go through other means, which is a lot later, like a form of radar versus instantaneously like transponders.
Okay. Wow. So
all these bases are being covered, and it's shocking because if I want to hijack a plane, I wouldn't know the first thing. Like, this was done so meticulously well, but this happened 4 times on the same day. This is the
military level of precision.
And I don't even want to mention the fact that what the maneuver the guy had to do at the Pentagon, that aerial maneuver being described by...
it's not possible.
We don't need to go there, but... trained pilots.
The top pilots in the world could not pull this maneuver that this flight apparently did.
Even with...
the momentum of the flight and the direction of the angle that it had to rotate and turn to make a U-turn and then drop and perfectly face... It's not possible.
Yeah.
The plane would literally just flip out into the sky. It's not because the U-turn that's required, they're going too fast.
And they have to drop altitude quick. I think they dropped 7,000 feet in less than 10 seconds.
That's impossible.
And the G-forces alone would have rendered someone unconscious. That's some Top Gun. I take off my mask. I don't passing out type stuff.
And this is an amateur. They said these guys actually took classes, right?
Yeah, one pilot, I think that flew either to Tower 1 or Tower 2, was so inexperienced that they were shocked that he actually was granted a pilot's license.
But didn't they train for 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, they trained. All of them trained at military bases to get their pilot's license.
Okay,
that's crazy in itself. But so
they break the GPSs, not to be general, just to help listeners if you're different locations, different countries, which is awesome, by the way. So they destroy the GPS devices, and now they can't be traced in the skies.
Yep.
But all these flights did this perfectly.
Yes.
They all pulled this perfectly. Like they
it's like
they held an entire flight's worth of people.
Like I'm condescending. Hello.
Duh. Come on. Easy.
Yeah.
I would have did it. Why, you wouldn't
We're talking about planes, aren't we?
Easy to say
And Isaiah joins us here on the Mark and Andre podcast
observing,
show.
huh?
I know. So much for observing, huh?
Oh, you messed me up, dude. All right, so when it comes to all 4 of these flights, perfect execution in every one of their tasks,
except for the one that falls in Pennsylvania.
But still, they managed to
the hijacking portion. Yes.
Yeah, they managed to hijack.
Yes.
Do you have any information on the Philadelphia crash or
From what the report says from what the commission report says is that this plane was being subdued by people within the plane.
Okay.
So a couple guys gathered up and said, we're not going to let them crash wherever they're going to crash because they think they're going to be going towards D.C.
Okay.
So what they end up doing is that they just take the cockpit controls to the cockpit and nosedive it. And
themselves.
Yes, but the thing that goes on the dialogue here is that these guys, the terrorists involved, they're like, let's just do it. They were down to just like, Allah be merciful, Allah this, and they just drove it right to the ground. And it's just like shocking to read that. When I was reading this, it felt like a actual novel from
like a script
from Patriot Games or like from those Harrison Ford movies that were from books. The Clear and Present Danger.
Yes.
Air Force One. Like it was like reading a script to that. Yeah, it's like I can't believe that this is happening because everything gets checked off. Like we can't locate these planes because of the transponders. Mm-hmm. They were able to gain access to the cockpit because they threatened for a bomb. Mm-hmm. Like the everything just happened so conveniently.
That is the word. That is the word of everything leading to this exact moment. It's convenience. This is like the most convenient terrorist. I don't want to say it's like there we go. Process like they're what is it? A military? I forgot what they call them. Anyway, drill. I'll call it a drill. So this is like the most convenient drill that they've ever pulled off. I mean, you got through. I mean, step one, you guys should have failed. Step one, get into the airport.
Yeah.
Step one, you failed. You have your box cutter on you. That shouldn't have worked. Okay, fine. You made it through. You all have your box cutters.
Yes.
And you get onto your flights and you don't arouse suspicion. I mean, you're all together. It doesn't look suspicious to anybody. And then you guys get on a flight and you wait till you get to a certain altitude before you guys threaten and hold people hostage. And you manage to get into the cockpit of every single one of these flights.
4 times.
4 times. And you get rid of the transponders, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They just knew they knew what to do. I mean, I understand them if they, having that knowledge. I understand that if you guys study planes for years and years and know where everything is and you guys have this all planned out perfectly, okay, I can run with that. Yeah. So you guys go on the flight, hold people hostage, cut the transponders, and then fulfill your mission, right?
Yes. 2,
It's just too perfect, though.
And 3 out of those 4 planes hit their designated target. Mm-hmm. To go into what we're saying, too, not even in the sense of the Pentagon, the Pentagon disaster, but for Towers 1 and 2 in New York City, the maneuvers that you still have to pull within skyscrapers, within a skyscraper-filled city such as New York City, to do that to such precision where you actually hit the building,
right?
Like that's incredible in itself. Like these are just things that like all these checks were just being checked off.
These are fucking paper planes, guys. Yes. Like you have to understand that that's why people have to train to be pilots. You can't just get in a plane and just pilot it. It doesn't make sense. You can't
there's no gas or
brake.
Like
in a movie when they have the pilot pass out or something, you can't just go, okay, I got it from here. It's not possible. You can't just hop in there, look at all these knobs and just go, I'll lift the
lift the thing up.
I'll lift the gears up. Yeah. No, so for them to not only fly perfectly into New York City, but to maneuver in a way to where they accurately hit the building, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You have to account for wind and the speed of your vehicle. This is a big hunking machine you're flying
747, baby.
You could really, let's say we're in a cockpit and we see our destination, but it's totally different to get to that point compared to being where you are. So like if you see it from a distance, oh, there's the building I need to hit. It's not like you just hold still and you wait till you get to that destination.
Yeah.
You have to account for everything. You got to make sure your flaps are in the right positions and all this other shit that I don't understand.
It's a matter of you actually. It's like when you play billiards, pool. You need to observe where you're going to be. How you have to make sure everything your shot is done right. Otherwise, done wrong, you'll either dive in too low, and then the wind overtakes, and you just start nosediving. You go too high up, it'll nosedive up, and then you'll just free fall back down. It's like there's these factors that pilots need to make sure that these flights are done effectively. That's why a majority of the flight is takeoff to where you actually have to gain the right altitude at 35,000 feet, come down, like all that. Those are all part, like the majority of the plane. These are the most strenuous on the plane and everything from there.
Right. So you mean to tell me, perfect hit. Well,
thrice times.
Right. Perfect. Like there's the building and perfectly make it. You don't miss. There's not a single plane that actually like clipped it. Just the wing hits it and then it goes down. No, it's a perfect direct nose hit into the
both of them did, as a matter of fact, and that's the shocking part.
They say the odds of that. What were the odds of that? Like
I wish the commission report actually covered that.
The commission report goes. The odds of this guy, seriously.
It's just these are really high odds for skilled pilots. It isn't that difficult for you to hit a target, and I'm talking not like buildings, but like to maneuver a plane to where you need it to be. But for supposed untrained pilots of this magnitude, to where they're actually trained,
to where they're busting U-turns,
it's going to be very difficult.
I think we can say they passed the test. As far as executing their
that's
training.
the thing. The odds of, even if they, like, as amateur pilots, right? Low level pilots still don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
The odds, they're saying like it's almost like hitting the lotto that you hit the very building that you needed to.
Yeah.
It's it's not like driving a car into something. You're driving basically a school bus with wings.
Yes, exactly.
And the slightest turn to the left, right? You could tilt the wing in a way to where it rotates and flips and you go down.
Like Grand Theft Auto, I always crash the plane all the time.
Right, because you can't hold it straight.
Yeah.
You can't even hold it straight.
Barely land that thing.
Great.
Yeah.
It's a good comparison, I guess. Yeah. Grand Theft Auto, it's the same thing, right?
So at this point in the segment, this is where we're going to actually go into the conspiracy portion of this podcast. So I want to let you guys know, another disclaimer is that any of the conspiracy speculation that we mentioned is not a reflection on our sponsor, and the fact that, to add to the fact that we're not architects, we're not physicists, we're not what else? Pilots. We, chemists. We just know what we have as far as evidence goes.
We're scholars, and we study and we research, and this is just based on the rigorous amounts of research that we did.
Let me paint a picture for you, gentlemen, real quick. So picture 110 stories of building.
Oh, okay.
The first plane hit floors 93 to 99 of the North Tower. Then Flight 175 hit floors 75 through 85. Both of them, 110 stories each. So, 93 through 99. How many floors is that being hit? 6. 6 from 110 is about 94% of that building still intact.
Right.
75 through 85, that's 10%. I'd say factor in the fact that there's 10 more floors, you would be like, what? There was a 97 to 95% of structural integrity.
Right.
But yet, how was the building able to collapse after only having, in the first tower, 6 floors destroyed and 10 floors destroyed out of a 110-story building?
It's just a little blip in the comparison to the building.
Exactly. On the scale of a 747 to the World Trade Center, that's like a 1-foot ruler, and I'll paint the picture for you guys at home. So picture yourself having a 1-foot ruler. We all know what a foot looks like, so even get a measuring tape. 1 foot. A little thumbtack would be the exact size to scale
of the plane to the building.
Of the plane to the building. So you're telling me that this thumbtack enters the upper portions of these buildings and was still able to make it collapse from top to bottom. Keep in mind, you could say, yes, the jet fuel leaked wherever it leaked, but you have to remember is that the size of the plane is the size of how much jet fuel you possibly have spilt all over that building.
So once again, that thumbtack's worth of fuel.
Yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's even less considering the whole plane isn't full of jet fuel.
Right.
The fuselage is probably like almost, I'd say, a little more than half of what the plane is, maybe. Mm-hmm. But that's not even enough. From a thumbtack to a 1 foot ruler, even in the sake of knowing how many floors were affected.
Exactly. And in the amount of time that it took for the buildings to go down, I don't know if that's a note that you have coming, but
100. Oh, the second tower, 100 minutes, and then the other tower was underneath. I think it was underneath an hour and a half.
Still, that's too short of a time. It's too short of a time for what they claim to have. When the jet fuel, this is what they say, when the jet fuel hit the building, it formed what is known as molten metal.
Yeah.
So it hit the beams, and the jet fuel was so hot, it burned that hot when it hit the building, when it exploded, that it created a totally different type of heat, forming molten metal, melting the metal to the point where it just completely eradicated it.
Yeah.
Now, if we follow this argument, or this speculation, this theory, or whatever.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not even a theory. They say this is what happened.
Yeah.
So that if we follow this idea, you mean to tell me that the building collapsed structurally? The entire structure of this building, based on how the beams were affected, collapsed from top to bottom because of that molten metal. That's exactly what they said.
In that one section.
In that amount of time. Now, in the history of buildings, right? The history of buildings, there's never been a building that went down from a fire. It's not possible. It's never happened. Because the buildings are designed to prevent that from taking place.
By code, buildings in New York, buildings everywhere around the world, like skyscrapers, are supposed to be fire retardant. They are not supposed to burn and collapse. Because if a building collapses in a skyscraper-ridden area, one hits the other one goes, you'll just have nothing but like a domino effect of buildings collapsing. These need to stay in because it's more it'll affect more people if this building collapses, and it'll affect other people. It needs to stand.
It's an engineering marvel, actually. That's why these buildings are so important. They're built in a way to, one, take a hit like this.
Yes.
They're supposed to. Because they're even ready for meteor hits. You know what I mean? So they're saying, because what should have happened, right? In some kind of, I don't say ideal situation, but we have a fire on one of the Twin Towers, and it's immense. It's unstoppable. There's nothing they can do. It would take days. It would take days for that fire to consume the foundation of the building, but the beams, the actual foundation, the beams themselves would not be affected. It's not possible. They don't burn unless the only way to burn those beams is, I think it has to be a flame that's about 2,000 degrees or something like that. Like, it has to be on another level of heat. It has to be consistent, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah, the maximum amount of heat that jet fuel can produce is not enough to wither the steel beams in the World Trade Center. It is a fact of elements. It's a fact of just temperature itself.
Mm-hmm. And they use the molten metal theory to kind of, I guess, cover their asses. Because with the molten metal, they say it melts down to this, I guess, it burns so hot it creates that degree that they say, 2,000 degrees or something absurd. But even then, if that 2,000 degrees did take place and formed the molten metal or whatever, it still would have been consistently burning for like a day or so.
Yeah.
So this went down in about an hour. The whole entire building just collapses.
I would love to actually provide more information from the 9/11 Commission report, but this is the actual turn that I'll do on that Commission report. The 9/11 Commission report does not state anything of what happened to the buildings after they collapsed. They don't go into the fact of how it happened, like why the building collapsed on itself like that at free fall speed. It does not state any of that.
Okay.
This 9/11 report is known as the Commission report, but to some, it's known as the omission report, the omission report. Like, there's lots of things missing from this Commission report that makes this book that I've read, all 70 pages of it, all 70 pages of the portion that I've read, actually useless. This is, I actually read this for no reason at this point. Because there's the commission report with itself, there's people within this team of whoever wrote this that actually blame people within the commission report of not being honest with the American people. So this commission report right here should automatically have no validity.
Right.
You should, for everyone that has the 9/11 commission report, it is better to just not read it at all at this point. Because if there's people within this, if the authors within this commission report
are contradicting one another,
blaming other people for not being so truthful, then there is no truth in this. Mm-hmm.
So everything we covered earlier could have been just misinformation.
Exactly, and that's the turn. This is what makes... I was just quoting the commission report just because it seems official. Mm-hmm. But it is your choice to believe what's in this commission report. Mm-hmm. Because there's actual proof, documented proof, that people were not as truthful as they could have been on this commission report. Mm-hmm. So the people listening at home, out of all the times that I've quoted this commission report, it's up to you to believe that.
Still, you put all that pressure on them.
Exactly.
It's up to you.
Yeah, only, it's like only you, the audience, can interpret what we're saying to a certain degree as the truth. Mm-hmm. Whether it's me, Andre, or whether it's the official report of 9/11. Mm-hmm. If there's actually things missing out of one of the most documented, the most recorded incident of the last 15 years, missing, left out, classified, redacted, whatever you want to say, if there's stuff missing from it, that means that they are hiding something. Yeah. That means there is something missing.
Now, I just want to just bring in a slight note,
exactly,
just based on what we've been talking about today. Yeah. I also want to say that this is, in all due respect to all the lives that were lost.
Exactly.
We might laugh here and there, just because we want to keep it lighthearted. We don't want to be dead serious the whole time, but this is in fact a tragic event, and it is one of this is a ripple effect. Like, the entire nation changed after this event, and this is in all due respect to the lives lost in this event. The people that have gotten sick from the event, like just people that weren't even in the building, caught cancer from whatever chemicals
from breathing in. Some people weren't even told to wear masks.
Right. So people, this still is echoing and affecting people today, and we're not coming at this like it's stupid and we're making fun of it, but we're just saying there's a lot of inconsistency. There's a lot of inconsistency to the point where we're just questioning what's going on. We're not making a direct statement about anything. We're just asking questions and throwing out ideas. That's all I wanted to bring to the table, because I realized it kind of felt like we were making fun of the event when we're not. We're actually very, we're actually passionate. We're trying to figure out what's going on.
Exactly.
Why the fuck are people lying?
That sucks, because people.
He keeps grabbing
I know. I just no. It's like this is what it is. Okay, so in the terms of what this report's supposed to be, and I hate to harp on it because we still have more to the segment, but I want to bring this point. I give this book to you. Mm-hmm. This book by me, or say I'm the author of this commission report, I tell you this has all the answers. Mm-hmm. This has all the answers of 9/11 that you need to know. Mm-hmm. And as soon as I give that to you, you hold it, you read it, and you're like, wow, now I know everything about 9/11. But then yet, why are there more questions and answers still after you read this book?
Right.
That means that there is some level of confidentiality within the people that wrote this that don't want the truth being out there. Because they don't even mention Tower 7 falling in that book at all.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, now that's weird.
By you instantly hiding that tells me that and the fact of how the buildings fell, that instantly tells me that there is something within those 2 points that they don't want the American people to know.
Wow. I mean, you'd think they'd mention Building 7. If you guys don't know what Building 7 was, it was just this building that was it's not just some random building, but it was, about a block away?
Yeah.
It's about a block away, and as the buildings fall, as the second tower went down... I'm showing Andre right now where it's at. There's Tower 1, there's Tower 2.
That's building 7.
Wow.
Building 7 is roughly
Not even close.
like almost a block and a half
Tower
away.
1, Tower 2, Building 7.
Okay.
Building 7 went down at the same time that Tower 2 went down, correct?
Yeah, it went down. No, it actually went down later in the day. But it's still
completely after they both went down?
Yes. Building 7 all of a sudden just collapsed. And it's also the first time in history where 3 buildings.
They don't bring that up in this.
No, they don't bring it up at all. And it's shocking to me because this is the only time
And there's footage of this. I mean,
Yeah,
the building just goes down.
Yeah.
They said the molten metal did that. That's what they said. Molten metal did it. How? You saw how far away the building was. It splashed over to a building a block away.
It's kind of crazy because I still try to mention to people about Tower 7 and they don't know anything about it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's still, this is the only event in U.S. history, in actual world history, where 2 planes hit 2 buildings and 3 buildings go down, like just get demolished. Logically,
From top to bottom. Once again, that's very particular to me. I mean, the building goes down top to bottom. Just top goes down and then crumbles at the bottom. Wow.
Especially after the architect even talked about that, how they designed it that way, certain metal they use. Or
architects for 9/11 Truth, there's hundreds of architects that support the theory that these fall demolition style.
I think I even heard the architect mention he designed it specifically, I think like you guys said,
to withstand
plane crashes.
There we go. Yeah.
Right. And also, if the building were to go down, the building is designed in a way to make the building collapse inward. But inward like an implosion style. Like all the pieces will fall within itself, not fall evenly down at the same time.
Yeah.
Because, like, let's say, I don't know, something even greater, Goku punches it and it starts to come down. In reality, one would assume the building would topple to the side and land on other things. No, the way that it's structured, it's perfection. It would topple and then crumble within itself like this.
Yeah.
What's kind of spooky is when you watch actual demolitions.
They're exactly the same.
You're comparing it the way they go down.
Well, because they say a demolition, when a demolition's done, it falls at free fall speed.
Yeah.
Because the way that the bombs have to go down, they blow up in a specific order. You don't blow it bottom up; it would be a disaster. You start from the top and you cut it all the way down as it falls, and it'll maintain free fall speed. Is that a note that you had? I feel like
exactly no, and it's still fine with because we're still at the pace of the segment at the rate of both towers falling. When molten metal, I guess, makes them fall from the top down
after an hour.
Yeah, nowhere near the impact zone. We have to mention that too. Actually, at the point of impact, the structure of those 2 towers are weakened from that point. So you would imagine that everything from that point of the plane of the impact zone where the plane hit going up would then demolish, and then the rest of that structure would be
stay
sound.
Still. Right.
No.
The whole building goes down.
Yeah, the plane hits. You would imagine the fuel doesn't leak up.
Right.
The fuel, by gravity's design, would leak down. But yet, from top to bottom, the building gets demolished. That, to me, is not, by physics, it is not logical for that to happen. It's like me stabbing someone in the stomach and his nose bleeds. And his brain just explodes.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's just by the same extreme, design, man.
Right, I understand though. Like
it's like,
dude.
But it still shocks me, and even with the fact of nanothermite being found at the site, there's tons of evidence of nanothermite being discovered at ground zero, and it's the only way you could get nanothermite is from phosphorus.
Right.
And phosphorus is used in demolitions to cut steel beams.
Yes. Oh,
There's
and that's
no
another
other
thing.
way.
The way that the beams remained, what was left of the building, they show the remaining beams, and they are all cut at an angle, demolition style.
Yeah.
So when you're demolishing a building, you place the bombs on the beams themselves, but you can't place the bombs on the beams like flush, like flat.
Yeah.
You can't do it completely horizontally. Because if you do it that way, it's not going to fall. Yeah. You got to cut it at a specific angle. It's a very particular angle.
Yeah.
Because they want the beams to slide a certain kind of way so that it falls a certain kind of way. So the remaining beams of the Twin Towers have those exact cuts at the exact angles that's needed for a demolition. And it's so weird. I mean, like, it doesn't... The thing that's crazy about it, it's like, well, how do you explain this? And no one says anything. That's all people are doing. They're just asking questions. We're not accusing...
Anybody of anything.
Can you explain why this is so similar to how a demolition operates? Like, why are they cut this way? There's no fire that I know of that can cut beams that are supposed to be impenetrable.
Yeah, and by that logic too is that from the floor 93 through 90 through 90 what was it 93 through 99, and floors. Let me go back to my notes here. From floors. Let's go. Sorry to
so many. We're just
75 through 85.
Okay.
From floors 75 below, if those buildings were to collapse with everything below it maintained, you would still see steel beams being pointed up, because everything above would have been destroyed. Okay, but everything brought down, I guess the cement, like the glass, everything else, but the central beams would have remained. No, they do not remain. This doesn't make sense in any regard. Like, you look at Ground Zero's cleanup, which took over a year. You saw nothing but dust and little particles of what remained of that building. There was no steel beams still remaining at the very top. There was no steel beams. I'll go by, there wasn't the frame of the building still up.
Right. It's like it cleaned out completely.
Why? It's like, and if I try to ask somebody, I remember I asked my friend who was working with me at this telecommunications company. I asked him, I was like, well, you were in New York that day. Like, what do you think happened? And he doesn't answer it. Like, everyone, if you try to go to New York and try to be pro-truth about it, you might walk away with a few black eyes because you're talking about, hey man, my brother was a firefighter. Like, you'll get into some shit.
And I think that's the problem with asking questions, because it's such a tragic event that if you try to just get more perspective on what happened, it's too traumatic.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost the same as asking a person, look, I just want to know more about your mother's killer. It's too much. They don't want to go back to that moment. And New York got hit hard. They don't ever want to hear this shit anymore. And they're going to stick with it. And then we have had some friends, they're not even from fucking New York, and we'll ask them some questions, and it'll be too much for them to hear. They don't want to go into depth. They don't care. They immediately rule you off as crazy. And the only thing that we do, we don't say a specific thing. We just go, look at this. Why is it like that?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to ask or answer these questions.
Bill O'Reilly, Bill Maher, and Hannity, that Hannity cat from Fox News, I believe. All these pundits, political pundits, will instantly tell you that 9/11 wasn't an inside job. They'll think of you as crazy. And a lot of people like Bill Maher. They think Bill Maher's cool. All these, there's a lot of fans from. So that instantly tunes out a lot of people because it's like, well, Bill Maher doesn't believe it. I don't believe it. If you do your own research on basic things about temperature, about structural integrity of buildings that are supposed to be fire retardant.
See, but that doesn't sound fun.
It's a matter of knowing what you're up against versus going by the word of Bill Maher or going by the word of Bill O'Reilly.
Well, it's easier, man. That's the reality of it. And nobody wants to do the fucking science. No one wants to look at planes and go, whoever in the history of aviation has pulled a U-turn going 300 miles per hour in a Boeing 8 whatever, like, no one's gonna look for that. And it's a Google search, and the answer would be no fucking body. So it's one of those things where it's kind of set up in a way to make you look crazy. That is a dumb conspircy.
Even after
it's a dumb idea.
Like you
why would they lie? What's the point? What does it mean? If you put this book down.
I know.
I love it when he grabs his book because
it's like
a.
I've read this to try to make sense of this whole situation, and I thought I was going to get somewhere. Like, okay, this is the official report, And it's not till after I did my own research on stuff, even despite the fact I did my research beforehand anyway, when I still was crazy about this subject. Yeah. But it's like I learned nothing like about 9/11 through this commission report.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah, it's.
Could I bring up something that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I always watch YouTube about this event too, because it always just interests me about the way it happened, the way it came down. Mm-hmm. But what I find interesting was when they have the video clip of them telling President Bush about it. What I found interesting is that what the kids are saying, because they're saying words.
Yes,
they're saying like plane, steal. Crash. It's so eerie the way what they're saying is like so like prophetic to what's actually taking place. It's eerie.
No, you ever saw that clip? Well, it's the same clip where there's a couple eerie things about this one. The clip is one of his agents comes up to him into his ear while he's at a school kindergarten, like some super high tech kindergarten. These are genius kids. It was kind of creepy. Yeah. And an agent comes up to him, whispers something in his ear. And Bush doesn't even move. Yeah, he doesn't. He's just chilling. He just sits there. And I believe you said he said something along the line of he didn't want to overreact in front of the children and scare anyone, right?
Yes, exactly.
But he didn't even look like he gave a shit. He didn't move at all. He didn't even wince or anything.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that too, is because he stayed at that school to give a press conference. Mm-hmm. They actually had the podium there and everything, and all the kids of that same class and that same school were there in the background.
Right, and what Isaiah was saying was the teacher was making them read something, and the way that they read is she beats on a drum, and they read the words to the rhythm of the drum. So while she's hitting the drum, the kids are saying plane, crash, like it's really crazy. Yeah, really? Watch the clip again.
The order's a little.
The order's out of
yeah, it's not words.
Yeah, they're saying all the words associated with what was taking place that day. And the odds of Bush taking this venture to see these kids on the same day. So yeah, whatever they were reading, the words were actually, I
had one more thing too.
Yeah.
I love this movie, Back to the Future. You guys love that movie.
Yeah, right.
That movie has a lot of ties to 9/11 as well. You guys saw that, right?
We've got
the one
so
about the
much.
guy upside down. You see that too?
Yeah, we've got so much on that one.
There's a lot in that.
That whole movie is
like. You guys already talked about that?
Yeah. Well, no,
we haven't had a whole but I did kind of blow his mind. I showed him a lot of stuff, and we never talked about it.
And it's very shocking to see all that. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
But back at it. So when it comes to this entire 9/11 tragedy event, I'm not wrapping up. I'm just.
Oh yeah, no, I hear you.
It's a tragedy, right? It's a horrific, tragic event.
Yeah.
And it's fishy as fuck. But no one's going to ask questions because it comes off as insensitive to the lives that were lost.
Yeah.
And that's almost the rub.
Right.
Yeah. Because if there is some foul play going, we have this wall. We have the lives that were lost. And that barrier will always block you. Because if you ask, well, what do you think? Why does it seem like a controlled demolition? You immediately say you don't trust America, and the lives of these New Yorkers were taken for some fucking world political game.
For the Patriot Act, yeah.
You know what? And I don't really like that, honestly. Even though I know it's, the condolences to those who are lost, but I don't like how that becomes in the way of something, of you trying to discover the truth.
Well, yeah, and, it's a wall against truth.
It's kind of like a tactic, and it just kind of, I'm not being any side politically, but it kind of reminds me of Hillary when she said about those lives, in that Benghazi, when she said, "What does it matter? Because the lives were lost. So why are you digging more deeper? The lives are lost. Let's just leave it." Mm-hmm. But
it's just the blanket that covers the truth. Mm-hmm. It's picture them being the pawn in front of the queen. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure you take care of those before you can gain access to the truth. And these pawns aren't going anywhere.
Right.
And I'm not trying to symbolize the pawns to the lives being lost, but it's like you were saying, it's unfortunate that you have to mention suspicious activities happening on an event like 9/11 at the expense of people dying, people trying to save other people within it, dogs saving their blind owners, getting them out, before they pass out and die themselves. I remember in the one of my U.S. history teacher, Mr. Fitzsimmons, always used to show us 9/11, the documentary, the one where the French filmmakers filmed the first plane getting hit. They have the only footage of the first plane getting hit, and there's a lot of stuff that went down. There was this one priest, a volunteer firefighter priest, that ended up having a heart attack on 9/11, so severe that he died before anything happened. Like before any of like the planes hit, but then this guy, like Father McGillicuddy or whatever his name is, like keels over. Like some real deal stuff goes in, and like once you see that, once you get that perspective, it kind of that movie was kind of made to like, well, do you really want to talk about it being a demolition?
Right.
Is it worth it? Is you finding out the truth really worth us going back into that painful experience?
Are the eyewitness, are the key witness, the key reports of witnesses hearing explosions, audio tapes of explosions going on before the towers fall?
What do you think? What do you think's more important, Mark? The truth, or that you pay respects and don't really go into that?
I think that there's tons of families that want an investigation done, and they were answered by this report, and that doesn't give you anything. That has nothing to do with there's no answers to any of this, because after 9/11 happened, Bush decided to go start the Patriot Act. We want to go to war in the Middle East to find some guy hiding in the mountains and show you footage of, we will then for 10 years show you footage of bombs getting set off on mountainsides. And then in 2011 they find Osama bin Laden and kill him?
See, that's why I think the science backs it up, honestly, even though it's kind of hard to go into this whole scenario, but the science, I think, backs it up. The motive kind of backs it up as well.
Exactly.
It's kind of weird because now you're kind of accusing your own government of a crime in a way, and that's another thing too.
This isn't the first.
You're accusing your government.
It wouldn't be the first crime either.
No, you're going to look crazy because you're gonna look crazy because it's like, why would they hurt us? Why would they deliberately hurt us? Why would they
lie to us?
Why would they lie to us? It's our government, and that is a concept that I think
It's the ultimate veil.
It is. And because we are under the belief that America is a utopia, and that image reigns all over the world. People beg to come here. You know what I mean? So for us to go, this utopia isn't what we think it is because they're killing us, or they're.
And if you think that way, you're anti-American.
You're anti-American. You're crazy.
You hate the military. You hate everyone that was involved in any attack.
Oh, yeah. You hate the support of the troops.
Skeptic.
And it's not even that. It's just, I don't hate this country. I just want to know why you had to do it. And maybe the answer might be so beyond our understanding. It might be so deep. It might have like way more connotations that none of us will understand.
Yeah.
But still, say something. Why do you give us this easy ass lie? Oh yeah, the Al Qaeda did it, and they were mad at America because
from the Middle East, they were able to plan this event for these people to go into airlines. Hijack planes, and it's just that you look at the scale of this whole situation and you're like, wow, all that happened within one day.
And that day happens to be the symbol of emergency, 911. The odds of all of this shit is crazy. But I just want to say this because, we're in conspiracy zone, so it's like, fine, we can talk like this, but it's like, I mean, what is the point? Isaiah brought up a point. Like, is the truth worth it, or should we just kind of let it be? Because we've seen people like show up at rallies or show up at like football games or like announcements and stuff, and some random dude will pop up and say 9/11 was an inside job and like run away, and they're dead serious. Like the truthers pop up out of nowhere at random locations. What does that do? Do you think that is effective enough to shift minds? To make person come make them go, 9/11 was an inside job, and runs away and gets beat up by a bunch of people.
Yeah, this goes up to the scale of finding like the ultimate truth. Like, it's very hard to do. You would need to do a unveiling of global proportions to where it's actually on everyone's feed, to where it doesn't get deleted off YouTube, to where it doesn't get deleted off whatever social network you want to do. But it's just we need to find the smoking gun within 9/11, and I think that if you pile up the temperatures of jet fuel, the maximum temperature of jet fuel does not match the melting point of steel. You go to the fact that nanothermite, which is used in demolitions and only burns with phosphorus, was used at the site of 9/11. It's found there. Like, you need to have architects which do back up the fact that 9/11, the buildings that fell, Tower 1, 2, and 7, fell free fall speed demolition style. There's tons of people that back it up. I think it's architects for 911truth.com, I believe. But it's just there's plenty of people that aren't at the low totem pole of society that tell you that 9/11 was actually may have been done by our own government. Well, but yet, then you have the pundits and everyone else saying no. Believe what Condoleezza Rice told you in briefings. Believe what George Bush told you, and he said terrorists did it. We're gonna get them terrorists. Like, we're gonna get them. We're gonna get them good. But it's like after that, you're still left with the who's, what, when's, where, and why, because
the residue of confusion.
Yeah.
Well, here's my perspective, and this is a wrap. This is how I see it. You can do that. You can have some super amazing hacker break every feed, all the TVs come on, all this shit happens, and they just show you like that one fact.
Smoking gun, baby.
Smoking gun. We have Bush himself with like an Osama impersonator, and he gives them the whole briefing on what's going to happen and how they're going to run the show and what's going to go down, how much they're going to get paid, account numbers, social security numbers, everything just gets thrown out in one conversation. And it's on film and you can see it all.
Right.
It wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, it won't.
Do you remember that one scene in Sausage Party?
Yeah.
That's the exact reaction. He told a truth, and they just went, I like the lie better. Get rid of him. Yeah. Because the truth might be too much, or it's like people will just find another excuse.
Mm-hmm.
That was obviously something that hacker did, well, it's obviously something that those are actors.
They'll find the way. Yeah.
It's like
because it's a truth that's too intense.
Yeah.
You can't, can you imagine a rugged redneck dude finding out his government is that America is using him as a pawn in some game? Do you think that he could handle that?
You had the guy from
he has tattoos of America.
The guy from NSA, kind of
Snowden. Yeah. They turned him into a villain. They turned him to a villain.
Eric Snowden blew the lid off of the NSA, and yet everyone's like, no, he's the bad guy.
He's the bad guy.
He doesn't like America, but yet he blew the lid off of a lot of things.
Yeah,
he's exposing wow, hello, another note that you're being watched. We're being listened to right now.
But even though we know, it's like, okay,
all right. What is it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Now we know. So what do you think it was? Wait, sorry.
Go ahead.
So what do you think what's your ideal then? Okay, everybody finds out the truth. You think they're going to sue? What do you think do you think they're going to revolt? They're going to, riot, go to the White House?
Oh,
hey,
no. The National Guard has too many. We have nuclear weapons to prevent anyone within the United States to revolt. Like, I'm telling you right now, like, if anyone, I'm talking in Texas, California, you try to bring your 10 magazine rounds against tanks from the National Guard, you will lose.
Especially now with the more of that gun control stuff, and we're starting to get more limited
high-tech weapons.
And I think more of our soldiers are probably, they might even be ready for that kind of martial law thing.
They might have Metal Gear Solid 4 tech where nano machines are perfect.
To even go into your point too, is that there's no baby step way to unveil 9/11.
Right,
and I with the method that I'm trying to tell you, that's too drastic. There's no warm porridge. There's no warm porridge to unveil 9/11.
The only way would be if the media starts saying that truth and being like, yeah, this actually was something from the government. That's the
But then that is checkmated by the fact that the government makes sure that there's checks and balances within entertainment and like CNN and Fox News.
And the government might think all hell will break loose if that comes out.
Exactly. So the reality is, guys, I'm sorry to like disappoint you, but like even this podcast right now might not be as effective as we wish it would be, because most likely if a person hears we're talking about this, they've already tuned out. You know what I mean? We lost friends because of this.
Yeah, there was one. I remember I was sharing Architects for 9/11 Truth a lot I always do every 9/11 because that's the only time where people will actually be receptive to
they get another look at it.
Yeah, and he
outraged,
basically ranted and says, if you want to tell me how much nanothermite does this and that, leave it for another day. This is a day of mourning. And I'm like, you have to understand is that this is justification. This is the answer to what we're looking for, because it's not acceptable to me to believe that one plane to the scale of a large building can take a whole building down. Let me bring into my final thought then too, just because my final thought to you guys is this on the Mark and Andre podcast show is that you need to do your own research. You need to not believe what everyone tells you, but you yourself are the only person that you're going to believe. You're going to be the only person that you're with throughout your whole lifetime. Do not believe political pundits. You need to do your own research on your end and confine within yourself the answers that you need to seek. If you don't care about what happened in 9/11, you accept the face value of it, fine. But if this podcast makes you question some things, look into it. Go into that rabbit hole. Because I did, and you open up a whole new world of this situation. Because everything just gets checked off appropriately. And I want to also go into the fact that I appreciate every single one of law enforcement in New York City that helped out on 9/11 that day, even the ones that were lost, and to the civilians that were lost. I have nothing but the utmost respect for the families and the people involved on 9/11, because that day shouldn't have happened at all. That day was a precursor for a lot of things, whether it happened purposefully or on accident. And it's unfortunate that we have to unveil things that make us seem suspicious of this event being not so patriotic to being not so patriotic at all, So that's what I want to get onto with the Mark and Andre podcast show. I want to let you guys know is that this Mark and Andre podcast show was brought to you by Game Swappers. Game Swappers. Buy, sell, and trade your retro games and next-gen consoles. That's PS4 and Xbox One. You can come into contact with Game Swappers via Instagram at GAMESWAPPERS. That's GAMESWAPPERS. Game Swappers. Buy, sell, and trade. Keep in mind, guys, that if you guys share the Mark and Andre podcast show, the only film, entertainment, and conspiracy podcast show on Spreaker.com, you'll be able to get 10% off towards your retro game purchase via online or in store. All you have to do is take a screenshot, share the show, and show the people on staff or via DM that you shared the show. You can also do the same to get 10% more towards your retro game trade-ins. Other than that, I want to leave the floor to Andre with the shameless promotion.
Oh, yeah. So if you guys don't know, I am a hip-hop instructor guy. If you guys are interested in hip-hop, or if you just want to learn the intricacies of hip-hop songwriting, you can check me out at youtube.com/Andre Gainer. That's youtube.com/ANDREGAINER. Basically, the channel is me teaching you specific rap tips, and if you guys don't want to just learn those things, I take popular hip-hop songs and I dissect them lyric by lyric, metaphors, rhyme schemes, flows, delivery, all of those aspects of the songwriting process, and I show you how they do it. And so far, so good. A lot of people are enjoying it. If you guys are from the show, please comment and let me know you're from the show. Say what's up. I'm from the Mark and Andre podcast. I would be so happy to see your comment. I'll reply to you. I usually reply to most of my people. and so far, I've enjoyed the process of doing the show, and it's been a lot of momentum growing from the show. So thank you guys so much for listening. I know it's pretty serious podcast today.
Yeah.
I hope you guys learned something, or at least gained a new perspective and some new insight.
That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, that's all we wanted to do. We just wanted to have a discussion today. All respects due to the lives lost at 9/11. It was a tragic event, and this coming anniversary, we will celebrate with mourning, but also with intrigue. So have a wonderful day or night.
I want to thank Andre for coming in on the Mark and Andre podcast show. And thank Isaiah Martinez for observing halfway through the show and then actually chiming in through the rest of it. And I want to thank you guys, more importantly, the fans, the audience. You guys, without you guys listening week after week on the Mark F podcast channel, it would not be possible. I want to thank my international audience. From Nigeria, from Austria, Belgium, Germany, Dubai. I want to thank all you guys for tuning in. Over 40% of my audience is international. And I want to thank you guys. 60% of us in the good old USA, you guys are always tuning in too, and I definitely do appreciate that. You guys have a good night. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Bye.